Okay, I think it's already one, and we have some over 23 participants at the moment. We'll have some more during the sessions, and this will be recorded for to be publicized again on our platforms of all the participants, all the organization in this network. So yeah, so we can start now. So again, thank you very much, everyone, all the participants, all the audience, and all the key stakeholders in this project and in the network. So good afternoon. Officially welcome to the Southeast Asia Anti-Corruption Network, or SEA-ACN Roundtable discussion. It's not the first, but it's not the last. There will be more, and hopefully looking forward to next year, not just next year, but towards the end of this year, we'll have another roundtable for public procurement, which Pushpan will speak at the end. But for those who don't know me yet, my name is Nattapat Yomanak. I'm the director of KRAC, or the Knowledge Hub for Anti-Corruption, and I'll be MC for you today's event. But before we begin, I would like to inform everyone of an important, very important notice regarding the protection of your personal data. In compliance with the Personal Data Protection Act, or PDPA, please be aware that this webinar is being recorded, as mentioned in the first place, and the recording will be made available for the KRAC YouTube channel. And please, 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 please do share this, because it will be very useful. This will be very useful guidelines and perhaps the starting point of establishing an actual tool to establish an open data standard. So let me very, very briefly introduce you to today's activity. So the online roundtable is a part of the Southeast Asian Anti-Corruption Network for civil society organizations under the Open Data Project Group. Our Open Data Project Group includes key partners such as the ASEAN Anti-Corruption Organization of Thailand, Sinar Project, WeVis, and Hand Social Enterprise. Together with these key partners, KRAC has organized today's event to officially launch a study focused on harmonizing the definition of politically exposed persons, or PEPs, across ASEAN or Southeast Asia member states. The objective of this study is to examine the challenges in defining PEPs, particularly regarding the varying levels of public official across different countries. We also aim to gather valuable feedback from public officials who attend as audience today, and perhaps please welcome you. You are all our panelists and civil society organization involved in anti-corruption efforts. Our schedule for today will be divided into two main parts. So the first part is the report session. So the session will present the outcomes of our study on harmonizing the definition of PEPs with a focus on Malaysia and Thailand. But it will be we can use this to understand not just Malaysia and Thailand's context, but for all the Southeast Asian region, and perhaps globally, because it's an international standard. I'm sure Khairil will talk a little bit more about that. And the second part is the panel discussion. So in this session, we'll explore feedback on editorial guidelines for journalists regarding the definition of PEPs in Malaysia and Thailand. During this discussion, we invite participants to share their feedback. If you'd like to contribute, please raise your hand on Zoom, and our staff will enable your microphone for you, because this is a webinar. It's to accommodate more participants. So in order to formally open today's session, I'm honored to invite Ms. Megumi Hara, the Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice Officer specializing in anti-corruption at the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime, or the UNODC, to deliver her opening remarks. So Megumi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nick. Welcome everyone to this online roundtable on definition of PEPs. I would like to also extend special thanks to Dr. Toplas and his team for organizing this and really driving this initiative. I would also like to say thank you to our UNODC's international partners, especially Sweden, for their commitment to rule of law and empowering civil society actors on anti-corruption. From UNODC's perspective, this is a significant event. We have established, as Nick described earlier, a platform for CSOs on anti-corruption on Anti-Corruption Day last year. So it's coming to the 1-year mark already. This network aims to facilitate the exchange of experiences and lessons among the member organizations. It's also a unique platform for CSOs to convene, network, and exchange insights. And the network also aligns its effort with the international standards on anti-corruption, such as the UN Convention Against Corruption, which UNODC is the guardian of. For UNODC and also for me personally, this is a really important work because we have the pleasure of supporting state parties to UNCAC on reforming and aligning their standards to UNCAC that they have committed to by ratifying the convention. But the UNCAC is also clear on whole of society approach to anti-corruption. So this network of civil society that KRAC is leading on really enable us to work efficiently with regional stakeholders in non-state with civil society space. And also this topic, PEPs, standardization of PEPs is important because we actually, as UNODC, we convened a regional meeting earlier this year in February, convening anti-corruption actors to Bangkok to really prioritize anti-corruption actions. And the potential of power of open data was really emphasized. So data-driven approaches to public procurement and also beneficial ownership was really highlighted by everyone. So accordingly, as UNODC, we wish to also support civil society actors to have space to come together, collaborate, and also experiment on how to utilize data and technology to their anti-corruption work. So I end my short remark here by retaliating our support to this network and all the efforts that are undertaken by our colleagues here today. And it's really a true pleasure for me and UNODC to work with you as you're so committed to anti-corruption work. And let me assure you that UNODC will stand with you in every step of the way for achieving the vision of anti-corruption. So I wish you a fruitful discussion today, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Megumi. Thank you for your opening speech, and that is very important to we can, as a network, we can work on this. One important partner is the UNODC, and we look forward to have a long-term relationship with the UNODC in the future as well. So thank you again very much. Let's begin our report session. Right. I'm pleased to introduce our speakers for this session who has been working very, very, very hard on this project. And we meet almost every month or more than sometimes twice or more than 2 times a month. So I'm pleased to introduce our speaker for this session. So first, may I introduce Khairil Yusof, the coordinator of Sinar Project Malaysia. Hi, Khairil. We have Witee Phusitasai, the co-founder and technical lead at WeVis, Thailand.
Nice to meet you all.
Hey. And third, we have Nattapat, the head of open data for transparency at Hand Social Enterprise from Thailand.
Hi, everyone.
And now the floor is yours. So please, I understand that Nattapat will be starting first, right?
Yes. So let me begin with the part that not too technical for everyone, and leave the last part, the most exciting part, to the technical guy after me. the most difficult part to them. So let me start with the most easiest parts to this. Let me begin with the use of open data for anti-corruption. The Open Data Chapter starts with the initiatives of the Open Up Guide that contains 30 priority datasets that can help tackle corruptions and to address corruption network and connect across the datasets. Under the 30 datasets, it includes, for example, the company register, which you can know who is the director of the company, where are they, what are they connected to. Next is the government contractor. For example, if the company become the government contractor, participate in the procurement, we have to have the list to use to provide more transparency in the procurement as well. Of course, there are many examples, including the political exposed person that we are talking about today, or the PEP list. Next slide, please. The FATF is a financial task force that they are the one who are the watchdog who focusing on the global money laundering and terrorist financing. They set the standards to aim to prevent illegal activities and the harm to the society. Also, the FATF published the guideline of what is PEP and also the use of source of information that we can determine PEPs, family members, and also the close associates to PEPs, which contain into the PEP list as well. Next is. So the definitions of PEP is an individual who is or has been entrusted with a prominent function. Many PEPs hold positions that can abuse for the purpose of laundering funds or corruption or bribery. This is the main definitions. Under the main definitions, we have the foreign PEPs, which are the individual who have been entrusted with a prominent public function by a foreign country. For example, the head of state or government, senior politicians, senior government, judicial branch, or military, and other important political party official as well. This is the definition, the main definition of foreign PEPs. Then the domestic PEPs, which almost the same, but we focusing on the domestic positions that we have to focus on. For example, the head of state of government, senior politicians, senior government officers, judicial, and also the military officials as well, or the board of director, or the state-owned corporate as well for the domestic PEPs. Next slide, please. Next is the family members who are related to the PEPs directly or indirectly through marriage or similar civil form of partnership. And close associates are the individual who are closely connected to PEPs, either socially or professionally as well. So this is the definitions of what PEPs is. Oh, I forget one thing. The International Organization PEPs. This is the one, the definition is persons who are or have been entrusted with a function by international organization as well. So we have to focus on many positions that use the power, which in international, domestic, foreign, and also the close associate, including family members as well. For this report, we are focusing on Malaysian definitions and Thai definitions that we can see in the law. So next slide will present the definition under the Thai and Malaysian law that we can find in the official document. The foreign PEPs in the Malaysian law, or the definition of Malaysia, is almost the same as the definition from the FATF, which are the one who, for example, the head of state or government, the senior politicians as well, the senior government, judicial, or military official as well. So this is the Malaysia. For Thailand, we use like almost of the definition that are the same as the domestic PEP. So next one is the definition that Thailand put in the law. The law in Thailand, which are the AMLO or the Anti-Money Laundering Office, is the one who is responsible for overseeing this PEP. So next slide, please. They put in the definitions into the law of the AMLO as well, so that we can see the details and more specific definitions to Thai than the Malaysian versions. So this might be the gap of the definition that we have to make up the standards so that we can share all the data in the regions. So for Thai definition of domestic PEP, there are 4 definitions. One is the person holding a high ranking position. So you might have a question that how high the ranking is. or how significant or authority they are. So I will have the example of the position at the end. Next is the person with a high-ranking position with key control and management authority in central government agencies, local government agencies, state enterprise, or other state-owned organizations. A person holding a senior command position in the military or police force. A person holding a senior board member position is constitutional organizations. This is the Thai version. And the Malaysian version is almost the same as the definition from the FATF. Next slide, please. Next is international organizations. So Thailand used the same definitions from the domestic PEPs to all of the categories. So it's easier for like Thai officials, agencies like to see how high they rank or how much power do they have to list off the position and put to the PEP list. Next slide, please. So this one is family members. For the Malaysians, they put in the details include parent, sibling, spouse, child, and also the spouse parents as well. Both biological or non-biological relationships. For Thai, the name fathers, mothers, children, adopt children, or adoptees of political exposed persons, sibling who share the same family and mothers, or those who are either parent with politically exposed person, spouse, or domestic partner as well. So you can see the detail of the difference of the detail of both, but with the foundations are the same, but the details are a little bit different here. Next slide, please. For the close associate, this one is like tricky one to find who are the one who close to the PEP. For example of the definitions that Malaysia have is that they extend the family members, such as relatives, both biological and non-biological, financial dependent individual as well, business partner or associates, prominent members of the same organizations as the PEP, individual who work closely with PEPs, and close friends. But in Thai, the close associate has little of the detail, but the same is that business relation has been concerned to the definitions. Next slide, please. So the finding, the question is, do we have the list of the position who should be on the PEP list? For Thailand, the Association of Thai Security Companies, they use the NACC position list for the asset declarations as a reference to identify who is PEP. So we have like hundreds of positions, government officers to like reference as a PEP, but from what we've discussed with Khairil, there's no like official list that can reference or use for the Malaysians here. So next slide. So this is the example of the positions that we use from the Thailand NACC asset declarations. For example, the high ranking is the Prime Minister, MPs, and Senators. The Constitutional Court Justice, the Chief of Justice, the Chief Judge, and also the Board of Independence Organization. The position is the Secretary, the Chief Judge in many branches, and also the Prosecutor, the Chief Prosecutor, the Leader of the Military, the Leader of the Police Department. The Senior Executive include the Permanent Secretary, the Director General, for example, and the local executive include governors, mayors, and the member of the local council as well. So this is the example of the list of the position that should be on the PEP. Yes. So I think this is all for the finding, the academic finding. After this, you will see the more exciting part of the data that we have been working for a couple of months. So The floor is yours, Witee and Khairil. Thank you.
Thank you so much for a great introduction. But don't be worried, it's not gonna be that technical, so I hope you guys will understand what we're doing. So according to Nattapat, you already understand who we need to include as a politician, a political exposed person or PEPs. But when we get into the step of collecting the data, you will have several questions like, okay, what kind of data do we need? How do we organize it? So that's why our team think that data standard is the thing that we should do the research about. So what actually is the data standard? So you can think like it's a set of desired data structure for a specific purpose. It's like a definition, but in the data perspective. For example, I mean, data can be in any format, but if you look at it, we always want to use the table. We feel like table is the most simple format of showing the data. So let's say if the data is a table, data standard mean that we decide the definition, like how many table you have, what the definition of each table, and in each table, what should be the header column so that you will know how to fill in the data. And we will walk through the example later. Next, please. Yeah, and why do we need data standard? First, it's about ability to join dataset across sources. So I think this is the ultimate goal that we want to achieve when we talk about anti-corruption, because when we can join several data set together, then we can connect the dot together. For example, let's say in this example, us as a Thailand and Sinar project as a Malaysian, we try to create the data in the same standard, and that means we can find the relationship of the PEPs in both country and how they are related together. So that's gonna be like so powerful to do it. Next, also about reusable tool. Sorry, I mean next point on this slide. But yeah, so next, why we making the data standard allow us to use the same tool and same code to do the same thing. I think in the next section, Khairil got a good example of how it will be done. And the last one, it's easy to get started for any organization. So imagine that your organization want to do the PEPs, and we already have data standard. We already like define what should be the table and the column. And then you can start going out and fill in the data without like try to doing what we are doing it again. So it will be more convenient. Next slide, please. Now, how to do it? So thinking about the data standard, we also don't want to make it from the scratch. So we start by looking at the research on the world data standard. Do we have other civic organization or the government that doing the open data, and do they already have some data standard that we can adapt? So we found the International Open Government Data Specification called Popolo. And if you look at the list of the organization who adopt it, I mean, you can see a lot of famous and familiar faces, such as the Gov Zero from Taiwan, My Society from the UK, and we also have Sinar project here. So we want to build a data standard based on this standard so that it will be compatible with this organization as well. And our team want to adapt and demonstrate with tabular structure, like I mentioned, on the Google Sheet, which is easy to visualize. So as a proof of concept, we at the WeVis, we are a civic organization that we did a lot of data project to support participation and open data in Thailand. And one of our biggest project is the Parliament Watch. I mean, you can check it out. This one is like a parliament monitoring platform. So you can go there and understand a lot of information about our parliament. And one of the perspective of that website is about the politician itself. Mr. Nattapat already mentioned that politicians such as like MP, Senate, or President, they are also like part of the PEPs definition. So of course they are PEPs. So as a proof of concept, we will use the data that we already have in Parliament Watch and try to convert it in the standard that we are working with. Sinar project. I'm not sure if you can click the link so that we can see a little bit of example. Does it work?
Yeah, I think it's on another window, right? So you need to share another window.
Okay, I think is it coming? Yeah, it's coming.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you so much. So just to see the picture of what we're trying to do as a data standard. So I just put disclaimer here that, okay, it's for demonstration purpose. It might not be like correct, so please don't use it. It's just for the demo. And you can see at the bottom that, okay, right now we model the PEPs into 5 separated sheets. So the first one is the person. I think this is the most straightforward one. So person table is about person who qualify as a PEPs according to Mr. Nattapat definition. So here each row is the one PEPs person, and you can see that each column is the information that we think we need for this person. Organization. These are it's an organization and it's so broad. It can be anything. Right now, when we talk about the data related to parliament, we have, of course, parliament, House of Representative, House of Senate, Cabinet, and also the political party that we can treat it as an organization. Next is about the post. So post is like a position that belong to the organization. So we can see here that each organization will have their own like role and level. For example, if we talk about political party, you might have like the head of the party, the member and everything. And then we have the membership table. So this one represent it's like a connect between person and the post, like who hold the position as a membership of each organization. Like you can see a lot of person name here, and you can see a lot of organization ID to like connect it together. And the last one, relationship. Sadly, we don't have sample data for this yet because this is a limitation of our own Parliament Watch dataset. We focus a lot on the what happened in the parliament, so we don't have something else like family relationship or anything else. But we still want to put it here, and it will be like we will try to gather other data set to fill in this table to be more complete. But this is to give you some idea on what we are working on. So our ideal case is that you can, when this one is not finished, it's still work in progress, but when it's finished, you can use this same structure of table and start filling the data and maybe try to connect and also like use it to develop. So next slide, please. So with this proof of concept, we found a lot of challenge, especially I think this is on the context of Thailand. We have on the open data perspective, first we have a very limited accessible data set. The data you saw on the table originally mostly was manually done by our researcher at the team, so shout out to them. Like mostly we got the name of the people who have the position, that's official, but the detail, mostly we need to like search on the internet and just reference it. So this one is so difficult. There are also no centralized official sources. So if they have one, this gonna be ideal. We can just use it. But as I mentioned, we did research and get the reference from a lot of sources. So it's quite took a lot of effort to get this kind of data. The second point is about internationalization. Because when we talk about a standard, we want to have like English name. I mean, to communicate with people who doesn't know Thai, of course. But we also want to keep the local language because it's the official one for us here, for the people in the country. So it's a little bit complicated to like right now we don't have official English name. We just like merely translate it. And when we join with other data set, we might run into the problem that the name doesn't match because it doesn't be the same. And we also need to add like a special column just to translate the data in each local language, which you might see on our table. So this could be the challenge as well. The last one is about the data maintenance. So it's related to the open data issue on the first point, because when we need to manually research and do a lot of things with our official data set from the public sector, is a huge effort to keep checking if it's correct, to keep make it up to date. And yeah, that's cost us a lot as well. So I would say these are the challenges, but on the other hand, you can see that it's had a great potential. I mean, it can be done. And I think in the next stage, I will move it to Khairil, and he will show the potential of the open data standard and the PEPs of what can be done.
Thanks, Witee. Yeah, so I'll go show a little bit. I was just gonna go back a little bit. Maybe Pushpan will talk about it later. But you'll notice that in Malaysia, we had very specific about state-owned corporations. And Pushpan will probably share a little bit why Malaysia that is important. Okay, so yeah, Pang next. Yeah. So yeah, as with it mentioned, it's really hard to maintain the set of data. And I noticed that for Thailand, for example, PEPs even includes previous PEPs as well, right? Previous positions. So it quickly becomes a few thousand. And then after 2 years, it becomes 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people and their relationships. And because these are high-risk people in high positions, it's very hard to make sure that that data is maintained with accurate sources. So part of the reason why we need open data standards is because it is so many people are doing so much work, and even then that's not enough. So if you have like a single spreadsheet, for example, like what Witee shared, that everybody can work on, then that will reduce how to say the effort in maintaining it, and more people can collaborate on it. So for example, in Malaysia, we've done quite a few collaborations and with C4. If we're both doing the research on the same thing, now we can both add it. We don't need to duplicate our efforts. Similarly, if there's in our case, for example, where media also does elections or budget monitoring, for example, when they report it on it, they can also help maintain that data set. So this is for Malaysia, and all the examples in the screens are real examples where what we can do. And I'll show some real examples based on what with its spreadsheet and what WeVis has done. So yeah, next time. Yeah. So for Sinar, this is not our first go at having a language. So I mentioned it with it. I was a little bit confident that this will work. Our initial work was in Myanmar, where for their first elections, they again had between 8 to 10 different civil society organizations, all collecting information on MP, just like what MPs and politicians like WeVis is doing in Thailand. And what we found out was we needed a specific standard that everybody can collect together. Somebody has photos, somebody has Facebook pages, and so on. And even though, as you can see here, I have no idea what characters that are in Burmese. As long as the standards for the columns are correct, I will be able to work with it. It was similar for Thailand. The initial set I worked with was all in Thai, but it didn't matter because the standards were the same at a technical level. I knew exactly what was in each column because of the data standard. I'd also like to share that the internationalization that WeVis learned, that challenge is actually also important for this moving forward because we will also possibly need the Malaysian version in, say, for example, Chinese, if it's on, say, the Chinese stock exchange, right? Like, how do you translate a Malaysian name or a Thai name into Chinese if it's for registration purpose? In a similar way, there might be a Thai representation of a Malaysian name. I'm not sure if that's true, but these are the kind of things that will benefit us at a regional level as well moving forward. So it's not just local language to foreign, but also foreign to local, which will help in investigations. Yep. So next time. So here's an example of why standardization is good. So just now, with it showed what WeVis was doing in terms of their website, and what tends to happen is that there are common problems across different countries. So you will eventually end up doing something very similar. So in this case, because they were WeVis is also a parliamentary watch, Sinar is also a parliamentary monitoring watch. We end up basically developing the same things when we're developing a parliamentary watch. So in this case, example, because WeVis had it in a popular standard, I could just import it into our system, which is a custom database. And as you can see, it ends up looking exactly the same. So this is a perfect example where data is interoperable. Except in this case, because Sinar also does anti-corruption, we have additional, as you can see, our system already has the concept of family relationships and beneficial ownership as well. So we already have companies in it. And then what we've learned from this can then be put into the spreadsheet at WeVis. So these are the kind of things that why collaborating on international data standards is so helpful. And yeah, why we did this for Sinar. And we had arguments on this at the early stage. You saw all the international organizations. With it mentioned that organizations is broad. So what did us Malaysians do? We put all businesses in there as well. And the argument back then was businesses should not belong in a parliamentary website or data set, right? And we argued that they're the same thing. A politician can be a businessman. And when Trump got elected for the first time, everybody understood why we were doing it and why it's these relationships between businesses, as in the PEP standard, need to be included as well, right? So yeah, next. So here's an example where with it was mentioning that if a tool has been developed and the standard is the same, you don't have to redo it again. So in this example, I could, because we've already done relationships and network graphs at Sinar, from the data that I imported from WeVis, as you can see from that website, we already had the scripts and the tools to convert the relationships into a network graph database for more complicated relationships. So I think this was just done basically in one morning to import the Thai scripts. But as you can see from the WeVis data set right now, even though it's just MPs and political parties and committees, there are already over 3,500 relationships between those, right? And once you start adding companies and spouses and families and former politicians, it becomes an extremely powerful tool. And WeVis does not have to redo this. Our friends in Cambodia don't need to do this if they use a spreadsheet because it's already been done. And any improvements is shared between all partners. So yeah, so this is a good example. And yeah, even the search for the Thai name worked. So that was the first person on the list. Yep. Next time. And the other reason for this is, again, as Witee mentioned, you're able to match it against both local and global data sets, right? You'll be able to, if there's published data on beneficial ownership, we will be able to use this list and match it against any name. We'll be able to use the Thai list, the Malaysian list, and feature lists like Cambodia and so on, and run it against existing data set. And as that spreadsheet improves, you can keep matching it against existing known to get more and more matches. So I didn't have the English name at first for Thai at the moment, so I used the Malaysian one. So an example for the Malaysian one is that with the 1,800 people or so that we have in our database, we run it against all known persons in the ICIJ dataset. So what we have now is more than what we had in 2015, I think, when the ICIJ leaks first came out. And then each time we improve that list, we can go back again and search again and explore. And it's the same for civil society organizations, for example, like C4 or maybe HAND that are doing investigations. When they get a beneficial ownership names of a company, for example, they would have a ready data set to just quickly scan through and see if it matches anybody, right? And then the bigger the list, the faster and more extensive each search becomes. So yeah, even at the spreadsheet level, this is a powerful tool. And because the names are following FATF guidelines, these are also the names that should be on the list of anti-money laundering and anti-corruption watch lists in the region and by enforcement agencies. So we should be looking at the same people. Yeah, next time. But what I also mentioned is that the tools here can be used not just in terms of the data sets. There's and any kind of ideas, tools, innovations that we use against this can be shared against all of this. I saw in the chat that Witee can see a perfect idea on this. So from the WeVis data set, they had about 1,400 pictures of every elected official, right? So all those faces have a name and a description of who that person is. That's valuable data. So what can be done by CSOs or media or even enforcement agencies is that if you have a large set of photos, right, of events and so on, you can put it into a photo manager and have all the faces trained, but you don't know which faces those are. So if I imported the 1,400 faces of WeVis data set with the names on it, I will then now be able to start knowing who these faces are by putting the names in the WeVis data set. So I used this politician in Thailand. I don't know who he is. He's from his Facebook images. I trained them all. And when I first added all his images, I don't know who he was. But the moment I have the image from WeVis data set of his picture, I now have a name to it. And now all those photos that this person is in is now identifiable. So this is just another approach. And now that WeVis knows what we're doing and other NGOs knows what we're doing, we can all apply the same kind of methodology and reuse of our data sets. So again, innovations and ideas can be shared across different organizations, different countries with the data sets that we're building. So yeah, next. Here's another example where the work also has implications or uses outside of just data. So when Nattapat shared in the early stage about working on those definitions, trying to make it clearer, what are PEPs? Who are they, right? What positions they are? These are also very helpful tools for people that need to investigate corruption as well. If you know who you're looking for, it will help you. It will help you in your investigations, especially if you have a clear guideline. We have, I think, Atok in here as well from East Timor, also Pushpan from C4, where we've learned that these kind of definitions can be also helpful to extend tools that are traditionally used for investigative journalists or civil society. So in this example, this is a traditional investigative journalism tool when we're trying to look for sources for a story. So what we would do is we would what we call a source village, where we would map out all the people around a particular story and then start interviewing or investigating them for different viewpoints and so on. But we can also apply with the PEPs definition the same method as well. So next time, if you click on it, it should do. Yeah. So in this case, we're doing the same methodology, except we're using the PEPs definition. So when we're investigating a case in Malaysia, I use this in our co-trainings with C4. So now we can do a PEPs map of who should be investigated or should be followed up when you're looking at a particular case. So in this example, we were using a government or state corporation for waste management. And then if we were to investigate, for example, stories about mismanagement or corruption around this company, we can then do what we call a PEPs map based on those definitions. So if I'm going to investigate this, who should I look for? Okay, I should look for business partners. I should look for whether there's government officials involved or on the boards. But then maybe they don't want to talk to you. So as an investigative journalist, I can now use PEPs as ways to look for additional sources. A driver is also a PEP in the Malaysian definition. So I could go, I should be talking to the driver. Maybe he has something to say about the story, right? Or the spouse or close associates or friends. That's also a definition in the Malaysian. So now using this, an investigative journalist can now start doing a map of people that they should be investigating around a particular case. And again, this is a useful tool simply because we now have the definition of PEPs. Yep, and I think that's the last one for it. Yep. So, yep, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Nattapat, Witee, and Khairil, for sharing the outcome of the report. And it's fascinating to learn. One thing that we discussed earlier when we were in a meeting is that even though you don't understand a word in Thai, you get a sense of what it is, what this person means, and what the data could be translated to. and from the examples that you provided, you could see that even look at the picture of one of our politicians campaigning and link that face with the database that you have. So basically, and this is true, this is a fact, that there will be Thai politicians colluding with Malaysian minister and investing in somewhere else, in Australia, in Japan, for example. But before this, the data is collected differently in a different standard, in so many scattered sources. So it's impossible to link these all together. So today, our research has shown that this could be done, and we have laid out the guidelines of how to do it. So it's not just Malaysia and Thailand, Timor-Leste, Indonesia, the Philippines, Vietnam. We could perhaps work together on this, and now we have the guidelines. Yeah, so thank you very much. I know that we have lots of questions, and it sounds like we are talking among ourselves that, oh, it's so good, but let's move on to the next session before getting all the questions from the audience, because again, this is just us saying that it's good, but those who actually use this information to conduct investigations, to write news article, to work on their daily basis, we have to ask them basically whether this would be useful, or it's just us who think that this is great. So for that, we now moving on to the panel discussion, where we explore the feedbacks of the study and discuss how the findings can be applied in real-world scenarios, right? So before we begin, please allow me to introduce our distinguished panelists for this session. So first, we have Mr. Pushpan Murugiah, the Chief Executive Officer of the Center to Combat Corruption and Cronyism, or C4 Center, Malaysia. Hi, Pushpan.
Hello.
Hello. We also have Mr. Atto Lekinawa Costa, the co-founder of the Association of Journalists of Timor-Leste. Hi, Atto.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, very nice to have you here with us. And last but not least, we have Mr. Kittidet Chantangkul, the director of the Anti-Corruption Organization of Thailand, or ACT. So
Hi, everyone. Yes.
hi, Kittidet. So please allow me to ask the first question to kick off this. So I'd like to ask each of you, from your perspective and experience, how practical you find these guidelines for real-world application. Please share your feedback on the studies, specifically as it relates to your experiences in Malaysia, Thailand, across the region, and Timor-Leste. How is it useful, or is it just us who think that this is great? Maybe we can start off with Pushpan and then Atto and then Kitty. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nick, and thank you for actually inviting me. It was actually a very insightful presentation, a very clear presentation of actually what is the objective and what is the activity that has been going on in coming out with a standard framework for a PEP database. Now, I think this is an excellent initiative. It's really, really important. Now, not just in the sense of anti-corruption work alone, it's also important to be a reference point for so many other activities, other criminal elements, other abuse of power issues, other areas of criminality as well, where you need this information to actually pinpoint or identify people of influence who are involved in the transactions. So from a practical point of view, this actually helps the anti-corruption effort tremendously for one main purpose. We are able to actually have a readily available database of identifying individuals, groups of individuals who are connected to any projects or tenders or government initiatives. Because by having that data, we can easily narrow down our scope of investigations, our scope of digging, our scope of identifying more information of which person we need to address more. So it gives us that kind of access of speedier access to information, which cuts down a lot of investigative work. It gives us a shorter time to investigate. Now, I also want to look at the other perspective issue or challenges. Yes, it's very helpful in narrowing down potential individuals or groups, but we also need to have other database to complement sometimes. For example, you need to have also a database on beneficial ownership transparent database. Having that together with this, it can really be a powerful tool to firstly be a preventive mechanism, because people who want to do activities or illegal or corrupt stuff now know that they will be listed in places where they never expect to be listed, and they have to declare the beneficial ownership. So these two database or these two kind of information can first act as extremely powerful preventive mechanism for intention to do corrupt activities. And secondly, it helps people like me or C4 to actually have faster turnover time for investigations. It gives us input immediately, gives us access to cross-border activities and relationship and association. So on that context, I think it's really good initiative. It's really important for us, particularly in ASEAN, to have all these database set down and placed somewhere for accessibility.
Thank you, Pushpan. So that's interesting that coming from you, suggesting that people who actually works on looking at cases, actual cases, it could save time, because usually you have to do this anyway. But usually it comes from like pieces of newspaper and bits and pieces. But now you can perhaps, if there's an actual database or if there's a standard that the data can be shared, then all these work can be done in 30 seconds, and you have be able to expose 100 cases in a day, perhaps in the future. And it will not be just a case of Malaysia. It will be international crime. It will be cross-borders crimes as well. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. May I move on to Atto? How do you feel about this this initiative, the open data, or the definition of PEPs? Would it help you in any way to in your work? I understand that you have before this work with Khairil to a certain extent. So how do you feel about this?
Well, I think this is a great initiative, and I'm really excited to see that we'll have that type of data that can be accessed anywhere. And it will really helpful for any kind of journalist work, actually. It's not to do with only corruption cases, but also other related cases. For example, I'll take on the case of sexual abuse in the church that we took on once, and learning through the presentation, I can now easily build the links between perpetrators, the priest, with the child commissioner, with our current prime minister. That easily can be built up with that type of data, and I guess it's really going to be helpful. The only issue is language, and that would be the barrier, since not everyone speaks English or read English. So this can be one of the challenge. Otherwise, I think it's really much the social psychology of Asia, because you cannot spare anyone from a case, because for example, just for Timor-Leste, it's very easy. If you know someone getting into trouble with corruptions, it can link easily to anybody else that close to the person, because the country is small, the connection is known, so it easily it's traceable. Yeah. So that's something that I think would be helpful for our region. The other thing I think it is important to also see how the PEPs things come into the different laws of the country, because we have here something to do with that the banking public instructions about PEP, and then we have commercial law, and also in the commercial law you have also something to do with beneficial ownership, or in our corruption law is on effective beneficiary and so on. So how definition can be matched also with the existing laws within the different countries. And the other issue is on when a person cease or no longer be PEPs. Maybe that can also be harmonized as well. In our case, we have 2 years after the person no longer holding public positions. This cannot be considered as a PEPs anymore. Now, in the open data, can we include that or not? For example, if someone say to be PEPs, then can we keep the data as there, or somehow somewhere that maybe later we'll need, and then we can build up again the connection to the one that's already no longer PEPs. So that's subject to discussion. How can we also harmonize that? Yeah, I guess that's it for me now.
Thank you very much, Ato. That's you posed very, very interesting and very important questions. And actually, we talked about language barrier, right, Khairil, the last time we met. That's something that we're exploring, and there's several ideas. I'll come back to you again for the response. And also, you asked about this standard, how can it be matched with the differences in each country. And about another important issue is, how about those who are no longer PEPs? Can we put 2 years like in Timor-Leste, or is it different in Thailand? Do we have 5 years in Thailand and like 10 years in Malaysia? What if this happens? If it's not the same, still can we have our database linked with each other? So I think this question poses a very interesting issue for our team to address. But before giving the microphone back to the people in the group who works on this particular project, maybe I move on to the third panelist to give his reflections on this initiative of ours. So may I invite Kunti Kitidet Chantangkul from ACT to talk a little bit about this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nattapat, for having me here on the panelist. At first, I have to confess that I have a little experience on the PEPs database. But as a part of my experience, I was a user for cross-check the PEP database when we doing the business with those people, especially in the financial sector. And we also have to comply with the AMLO law to report and cross-check every transaction that these people have established connection with the financial institutions. So the obstacle that we found is very hard to access to the PEP database for free. For the public access, it cannot be accessed by anybody, but you have to be a representative from the financial institution to access to the database. And that's why it's very limited for the people who interest to like investigate, journalists or anybody that would like to investigate on the corruption or conflict of interest that those people has with their family members. So I think our initiative is very important because we're trying to bring this database for the public access. I think this is a very key important that we are doing I think is a very good benefit for all. But anyway, we have to concern a few things that if we trying to open this information, I think we can as we are the CSO, and we don't concern much about the PDPA because we use this for the public interest. And another point is I think PEP database in Thailand now is very more important because and at my present task that I'm responding is we're trying to connecting to the president of provincial authority in the local area in Thailand because we will have an election in the next year. But now we connect that so that is many province has the same family member in the president and in the parliaments, local parliament as well, in the same surnames. It's very surprising that there is a lot of people like this across the Thailand now in the political system. So I think PEP in one benefit that we can use is to raise awareness of the people who is a voter to be aware that when they're voting, they have to vote the people that had less conflict of interest to run their province, and including to transparent all the budget and authorize that they use for the all benefit for the people. And I think for the centralized of the Thailand, we also had a state-owned enterprise, which I think, I'm not sure about the definition that the first session present is must be including board of director of the state-owned enterprise or not. If yes, I think it's very important because this positioning is high risk and prone to the conflict of interest and corruption as well in Thailand context. And another point, I think Otto think like me that the post-employment of the top ranked public officer, I think very important to disclose them as well because and the body is international standard. Normally they have a cooling off period for 2 years after they left the position. And in the past 5 years, if they still have hiring to be the advisor to the private company, I think it must be important because the PrEP, they are focusing on the inference of their positioning. Even they left the positioning for the 2 or 5 years. I think this way still valid to have to disclose this relation to the public to be aware and trace back. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Kittidet. So you mentioned one very interesting, which I haven't thought of before when we were talking about the PEPs data, working on PEPs database. Our initial idea was to help with the investigators. But what you mentioned of corruption prevention by raising awareness for voters, that's very interesting. And that could be not just the byproduct, but the direct impact, direct benefit of having this database as an open source data for free, as you mentioned, right? So yeah, that's very important, and that's something that we should aim for as well. You mentioned about SOEs, the state-owned enterprise, whether they're included, and also the revolving door problem. So it's something that hopefully our initiative could address that. Yes, I can see that Pushpan has his hand raised. So before going to the next question, before going to Pushpan, may I also ask all the audience that if you have any questions, please raise your hands, and our team would enable your microphone. Or if you don't want to speak on microphone, you can choose to type your questions in the chat box, and I'll be reading and asking our panelists as well. So yes, please, Pushpan.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So I just want to look at the issue that was raised in terms of the 2 years or cooling off period. I think that is also a critical point to raise up, because in order for us to have a clear directive for what or should we actually have that kind of policy, we also need to understand and see how PEPs will actually help us identify what corruptions are happening in which country by which medium. Whether is it associate, is it a member of parliament. So that data will actually give us information that will help us draft a conflict of interest regulations or legislation. So what I'm coming to say is that this PEP database can also go forward or even help us further in framing the outcome of each nation's code of conduct or regulation for parliamentarians. But I know Thailand is going to go ahead to strengthen theirs. Malaysia, we are pushing for it as well. So this information can help us draft a correct, more relevant code of conduct practices for each country based on database that we collected from them. That will help us identify whether we should have, for example, a cooling off period for PEPs, which I personally feel we should leave it there for as long as possible, because each country, how they influence contracts, maybe they're still no longer there, but they have influence through having positions in that place before. So again, those are issues that we can only come out when we have data in place. So I feel that the additional benefit for having PEPs is also to have us formulate other legislation, other contexts, other laws to help us strengthen the entire process of fighting corruption. Now, maybe I can answer this later. 2 questions for Khairil, just to ask very quickly, when each nation or each CSO of each country puts in those data in the standard template, will it be automatically collated into one whole centralized database, or is still going to be left decentralized by each nation? That's my initial comment. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Pushpan. And I think we should go back to the team, to Khairil, to Witee, and to Nattapat of these questions, especially the last question by Pushpan. Do we work on our own database and then we'll link together into one platform, or do we have to build one single database ASEAN anti-corruption database platform, and everyone needs to input their data into this. And also a question from Ato and Go, also from Kitty about the language barrier. Can standardized be be matched with the differences in each country, and the term of the PEPs. So maybe start with Khairil, Witee, and Nattapat can join us later. And we also have some questions from the audiences as well. I'll keep it for that for later.
All right, I'll go first. Yeah. So I've got okay. So first to answer on the expiring, or will PEPs be archived or not, right? So this is actually something that we need to work with law enforcement agencies and regulatory bodies as well. Is how long is a person an active PEP, right? That one is something that needs to still be discussed, and that will be helpful for us. But purely on the data side, in the structure that we actually have a start and end date for the positions held and the relationships as well. And that kind of sets an expiry date for when a person is holding power, or the start and holding power. In my work in the past, these dates are extremely critical if you need to do investigations at any time period for current or previous PEPs, because you need to know exactly when that person had power to influence. So if there was a procurement case and you matched against a name, was that person holding power at that point in time that specifically case happened, right? So in this case, it doesn't matter if the person is a current or previous PEP. What is important is that that person held a position of power at that specific time. So on the data side, the start and end dates for when a person holds position is extremely key, because I have experience in the past where I couldn't find an end date or a start date and could not conclusively say that that person was involved. 90% yes, but because I could not prove that that person held the position, I could not make that statement. I could only say linked to. That's about it, right? So that's on the historical. So on the data side, you will keep it all the time, because often corruption cases sometimes don't get leaked or exposed maybe 5 years down the line. That's fine, just as because for example, you will always have data on the previous prime ministers of Malaysia or the previous MPs, right? They may no longer be a PEP now, but that data should still be kept. It's just they're not an active PEP list. So that's two different lists. It's the same list. It's just whether a person is marked as active or non-active. And active being that they're currently holding that position now. But just because you're no longer an active PEP now doesn't mean that you get purged from the data. Because you still have to explore issues around revolving door, as well as past cases where you may need to match a specific name. So for example, 1MDB is like what, now 8 years on? We still need to go refer back from that data 8 years ago if we want to encounter who was responsible back then. So yeah, that's on the data side, where we need to have a better definition of active and non-active. But in terms of previous ones, yes, we must keep them, and but must have a clear end date in the data as well to show that that person's no longer active. On the second question on Pushpan, on whether we should have it published, so on the active side of maintenance, that would probably be decentralized. Why? Because it needs to be maintained by the different local organizations, and also due to the slight differences between each. There'll be always slight differences in classifications and so on. But so at that kind of day-to-day maintenance, it will probably be decentralized. However, a longer-term goal is that at specific times, for example, let's say, I don't know, once a year or something like that, or a quarterly, a snapshot of that data should then be published on a centralized place from the different countries. I'm most likely proposing open sanctions because open sanctions already is in the process of consolidating other official lists of PEPs data. So I would say at specific times, the regional kind of PEPs databases should publish two open sanctions in their format. So now you would have another complementary list. So that should be the plan. But on a day-to-day basis, it would probably be decentralized. And also because something that could be raised and somebody could answer it later is the issue around liability of that list and mistakes in that list. So before we publish it to a public central place, it probably makes sense that we have snapshots where we verify the integrity of the data before we make such lists, like static lists public. Yeah. Hope that answers questions. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And how about still with you, or maybe to Witee and Nattapat as well? And how about the language barrier? You showed us that, okay, it's incredible that you can understand Thai to a certain extent, but what happened if you just get to understand what it could mean, but you don't really understand the name. So what is the future for this? What can we do with it, and how can we approach this language barrier? Is there any other solutions in the future?
Yep, I can answer that. And actually, we are making toward that solution. So what we should do is actually make it make the structure support multi-language. So as I mentioned earlier, don't try to learn Thai. It will take you a lot of years to understand it. So as a person who maintain the data, I think it's our own responsible to add at least English language, which is should be the most standard one into the data set. So if you look at our table, we have a column name, representing each of the pest name. That one should be English. But we also have a name underscore th. That means it's the name but in Thai language. So in the data perspective, it should be like this. So we should stick to the English as a default because, well, it's a first language standard. But we can also include the language in each of the region as well. So Thai dataset will have Thai, and maybe other country dataset can have the same. Now the challenge is that how do we get the English name? I think this is the big limitation of the sample that I show you, because as we discussed, the English name, I mean, if you are Thai, you understand that you can choose how to write your name in English, and there is no rule about it. I mean, my name can write in several ways and it's still pronounced the same. So the challenge is that those English names must be official. So when we say official, it might be referred to the name that you put on the ID or on the passport or whatever official document that's work. The point is that we as a WeVis don't have access to that data set yet, which contain the English name. So this could be our next challenge. So we know that we need to push toward the data standard that support multi-language in the same data set. But right now, it will be a challenge to find a data set that have official English name so that other people can use and match it on their official English name as well. So I think that's the direction that we want to go. But yeah, we still have some issue with the data.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. That would be incredible, right? If we can get the English names of all the PEPs so that we can link it with, as I mentioned earlier, when Malaysian and Thai politicians, they work together. So us as globalized citizens can access this and make linkage between, because they are PEPs, no matter which country they are in, right?
Yep.
Thank you. Yes, Khairil.
Sorry, I just wanted to address the issue around language difficulties. So one of the things about this. What's harder actually for the standard is to have the classifications the same across different countries. That's actually a harder thing. What I mean by this is, for example, a parliamentary committee, right? If parliamentary committee is the same classification in 5 different countries, then on the data side, right, it'll be, I don't know, P committee or something like that, right, as a code, right? But then each country maintaining their own database, you can use your own language for what a parliamentary committee is. So for me, each country can easily maintain their own language or translations of each of the standards, right? Position, name, and so on. You can have that in your own language. The bigger challenge at a regional level is that is a government state, is a state corporation the same meaning in East Timor as it is in Malaysia, as it is in Thailand. So the name state organization can be translated across 3, but does it mean the same thing? That is a harder challenge for me than how to say, that's a harder challenge for me than in terms of being able to use the data in your own language. So that's, yeah, my take on that.
Thank you, Khairil. We have a question from Oliver Rack from Open Government Network, who asked about this particular issue that we are discussing. He asked whether is it just about the English names or also the spelling in Latin letters? I would say both, right? Getting the names and the spelling as well.
With it? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so sorry, I was looking for you. Witee or Khairil?
Yeah, I've started to think, I mean, both. I mean, maybe I'm not so sure what the difference between that, because right now we treat it the same. What we mean by English name is, yes, spelling. For example, we have Thai name, spelled in Thai character. But when we mean English name, yeah, it need to spell in the Roman character and should be read like English. So it will be more standard. Anyone can read it if they understand English. And yeah, for us, I think we hate it in that way.
He
Yeah.
has a question that maybe the ASEAN authorities can help solve this problem, because we have the ASEAN community and they have to communicate in some standard language, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, my take on this, at least for an international corruption investigations, is that there is you'll need the alternative names columns. And what I mean by this is that there's no such thing, in my experience, of a standardized name. We even have a previous prime minister in Malaysia that doesn't use his real spelling name in public, right? His legal name is Mayidin, something like that. Everywhere else, he uses a different name. Similarly, they may not always be a situation where a person uses the same name overseas. And this happens a lot in corruption. You might use a nickname, and maybe it's allowed. Or you would have misspellings in overseas jurisdictions when somebody translates a name that they're not familiar with. And as Witee mentioned, in a lot of places, you can register a company where it will be different, slightly different. So the Chinese characters in Taiwan might be slightly different from the one on Shanghai Exchange, might be slightly different from the one that is registered in Malaysia. So for me, there's not going to be a standardized format in all of this. We probably will have to have maybe some sort of kind of official name, maybe the official local name, but then a list of nicknames, alternative names that are known to be associated with this person, linked to some sort of official or legal document. Yeah.
That's very interesting. That could be perhaps the next phase to look into the names, the nicknames, and the names and names, name 2, name 3. So thank you for that. Now, Yes, Pushpan.
Yeah, can I just add a little bit? I want to ask this question. I think having aliases all that is good for identification purpose, but perhaps one singular point that will not change wherever you go around the world is your personal identification, either a passport or your ID. Maybe that could be something used as a more legitimate reference point rather than the name, because legally, if you have a name that is different or significantly different in other country and use that name, potentially you can be liable. So it's better to have a more recognized identification purpose or document or number that we can use as reference points to be having a stronger calling out purposes. That would be my point.
Yeah, I don't think it's with its initial sheet yet, but in the standards for beneficial ownership, and also for popular, there's a field called identifiers. And these identifiers can be multiple: passports, national identity cards, driver's license, official registrations, right? So, or even identifiers to other data sets. For example, US sanctions data set will also have another identifier. So on the data side, if a person has multiple identifiers, you add as many as you can or know of. Because again, as you know, as an investigation, you will need possibly just even the passport. Possibly you probably want to have another set of verification that this is the same person that you're looking for. So yeah, so on that sense, the standard does have identifiers, and it's extremely useful. Even in beneficial ownership, a company can have a US GIF identifier. It can have a local registration identifier and so on. So yeah, it's another set of data that we should have and collect here.
Thank you very much for the question and answer. I've got lots of interesting comments from Oliver Rack. If you would like to come up to the to the panel, this is a very informal session, and we would welcome all comments and ideas and questions as well. If you'd be so kind, we turn on your microphone, and perhaps you can join our conversation as well. Because he also suggested that, well, can probability statistics help to match names? That's something that I haven't thought before. That could help, right? Witee is nodding his head. Yeah. So while we're talking about this, we also have another very interesting question from the audience. So, and everyone, please help if you feel like this is something that you can answer, because this is a roundtable, it's not on the stage panel. The question was that there has been a recent investigative reports into both the incoming president in Indonesia and other incoming ministers and their connections to a variety of organizations and land ownership. This doesn't seem to have a significant impact on the population. How can this apathy best be challenged? Wow.
Maybe I can just say one or two words on this. Basically, I think the same problem is across the board. The fact that corruption itself or corruption issues are not particularly high on people's interest because of other issues such as bread and butter issues, the family issues. Those are taking more prominent over grand corruption. I think that's incumbent on us as anti-corruption fighters to find ways to raise the level of seriousness of these issues to the public. I think having this coalition will also help in trying to formulate ideas and strategies how to raise empathy when it comes to corruption. Corruption hits everybody, destroys everybody, but then the public empathy towards it is very low. So that's probably all faced across the board.
Thank you very much, Pushpan. We have one of the audience that raised hands. Noramun from AMLO. AMLO is the anti-money laundering office. So maybe we can have Noramun ask the questions or give comments, please. You can turn on your microphone.
Okay. All right. So can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Good afternoon, Dr. Nick. Actually, I'm Suprani, and then I just use my colleague's account. Okay. So, I just like to share and thank you for organizing this forum. It's very helpful indeed. You didn't just think it by yourself. I'll support that. This is very helpful. And in terms of PEP definitions, we still have some challenges when you're talking about PEPs, and this is very helpful for us to at least we learn from the other jurisdictions how they identify, because if you use the PEP definitions that according to the NACC asset declarations, that may be tons of PEPs, which is not in line with the international standards. So this is one of very helpful. What I concerned about the the language challenges, or some comments that we may use identification number or the passport number that could clearly identify the persons, whether it's the same person or not. A little bit concerned about this kind of information that may be quite sensitive personal data that may not be able to publicly available for anyone to see such information. So maybe we still have to discuss more about this issue later on, and then AMLO is more than happy to engage in this forum if you think we could do of any help, because we are also thinking about considering about the guidelines or the amending of the regulation in relation to PEPs, as clearly mentioned by our colleagues before about the terms of PEPs in Thailand is quite forever. So once you are a PEP, you always a PEP here. So sometimes it doesn't work that way. And then if you have to collect all the data sets of the former PEPs, previous PEP, and their associated, that may be wow, huge number. And another concern is how to verify such information. So when you are using it together with the beneficial ownership data set, so then they need someone to identify and verify the accuracy of such data set. And this is another concern that we still have to work on. At the moment, I would share with you all that AMLO is drafting, amending our law to include the requirements on beneficial ownership in our Anti-Money Laundering Act. And however, we still is in a working process that we may need the support from you all. If you have any information that we could get some assistance or support, and then we could use it to improve our draft to be more in line with the ASEAN or the international standard. That would be very helpful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. That's incredible. I mean, that's actually the reason why we do this, because just us, civil societies, academics, and journalists, we can't actually make that much impact without collaboration with you, with people, with authority, with state organizations. And thank you for listening to us, and we would be very happy to support you. I mean, if it works out in Thailand, we could use this as an example to push into other countries around the region as well, because we all learn from each other, right? So that's incredible. One question that the Khun Muay from AMLO mentioned is that the private information, the identification number, what do we do with that? Do we have to leave some parts and then show some parts? What do we do? How do we deal with this?
Let me just add a little bit on that. I think we also must always try to remember the objective and purpose of having a PEP. and also the objective of a PDPA or the protection of data information. Whereas protection data information goes with detailed information of individuals, their financial records, their date of birth, or even something more personal, their medical history, their medical records. Whereas PEP deals with situations where they have been exposed through political association, political affiliation, political work. So we have to first to demark that two special consideration or position first before we want to mix it up very carefully. So yes, there is concerns of those data that is personal, but then again, PEP's function and the logic behind PEP is different. So there might be situations where there are overlap of information, but I generally feel that PEPs should be able to be accessed because those information are already available anyway. Is how you collect those information into a centralized database. I think we have to be very clear in that. Second thing also, I also want to have another strong demarcation. Yes, beneficial ownership is important to be working together with PEPs to identify corruption, potential conflict of interest. But beneficial ownership works separately, the mechanism is different. Whereas PEP mechanism is different. Beneficial ownership is people hiding behind proxies, names, and you want to expose them to see the linkages. Whereas PEP has already been exposed. They are already in that field. So therefore, if we must understand the mechanics, then we are able to use those information database to help in our work. So I just want to put it out clear that you have to sometimes look at this in compartmentals so that they work together as a larger tool for all of us.
Thank you very much, Pushpan. Before I go to the next questions, now we have Oliver Rack with us on the should I say on the stage in the panel. Would Oliver like to give us some comments or address some of the issues that we are discussing?
Yes, thank you taking me on stage. Good morning. Here in Germany, it's good morning, very early.
Oh, wow.
It's very interesting, and yes, it's everywhere the same problems we are facing, and so this is what I ask myself is like, what can natural language processing and language models help to solve problems with interoperability or missing standards. So this will hopefully be a big step to get those things matched. But I've also another question. It's about how do we get this sustainable financed? So who's running the database, and how is this financed, not just as a project, just more like in an institution? That's a big question to raise. And also, I don't know how strong the Freedom of Information Acts or Rights to Information Acts are in Malaysia and in Thailand. In Germany, it does not really cover databases, just documents, and so, but it's interesting. There are some countries where freedom of information also covers databases, but it's really making efforts to make them open if they are not, because of quality management and stuff like that. So, but this can be also interesting if there are missing data, if those acts in Malaysia and Thailand are also making it possible to access data by Freedom of Information Acts, and so you can have some mass requests. We did some mass requests on documents in Germany about several laws, where in one campaign 500 people made some Freedom of Information requests. Such stuff is very interesting because now we have the technologies to have some mass requests. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Very big questions. Maybe Witee may have some response to that.
Yeah, thank you. That's a lot of interesting point. I think I will go one by one. The first one is about use statistic and those machine learning data science tools to match the name. I would say that we did it. The point is that we need to be careful about it because we at WeVis, we work with a lot of data set. And I think the perspective of Thailand data, open data is quite similar to maybe your context because a lot of our data set is pretty bad. It's not machine readable. It's a huge PDF, like so many pages. We also like need to do a lot of OCR, like extract the text out of those kind of documents. And also we found a lot of like, it's a technical error always when we use this technique. Or sometimes we also use official website and they also human error that they just fill in incorrect people name. So we also use a thing like, so we match the name in the way that we allow some error to happen. Let's say, okay, 2 or 3 character error is fine. But when we go this way, we always need to manual check. So when we use this kind of statistic matching method, we do like a suggestion to the curator of our team. So we are like, okay, we try to match this. It's not exactly correct, but these might be the possible match name. So that curator, who is a human in our team, need to recheck if this suggestion is correct or not. So yeah, I mean, it helped a lot, but I want to emphasize that going this way, we need a human to recheck it. And go to the second point, you talk about finance. This is the very big question, even for us. Right now, we honestly get a funding. And what we try to do is that we think doing open data standard, providing open data to the citizen, it should be the public sector responsibility. That's what we try to do. And we, as the WeVis, also do the privacy advocacy part, that we try to push this initiative from inside the parliament itself. Unfortunately, we should have the API, like open data of our parliament by now, but due to the change of political landscape here, I think it's gonna be postponed for now. But so right now, as a short term for WeVis, we get the funding to run this thing. But for the long term, we try to push it into the public sector hand, and we hope that one day they will carry on our work or maintain it, or even like use our standard as the official one of the country, because our open data system here in Thailand is not that good as well.
And are there any media enterprises interested in financing? Because you're building foundations for their work.
I can answer that. Well, currently we have the support from the UNODC to work on this very small projects as a guidelines, perhaps a guidelines and a collaborative the first collaborative projects at CSO levels among the different countries in Southeast Asia. But as Witee said, I think to make this sustainable and to make this comprehensive, we need support from the government. If they want to support us, it would be great. Or actually, just Witee said, it should be their responsibility because right, we're working to help better the society. But anyhow, a sustained support would be very important to make this actually implementable. This is just guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. But thank you very much, Oliver. Hope to be in touch with you, and hope to, if you're interested, we would like to welcome you into our network. It's an informal one, and we share information and resources.
Thank you very much. I'm already observing since a couple of months what you're doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, so again, to everyone, to the audience as well, this work is not just we send out invitations for different people to come and speak, but we have been working for several months now. So we're presenting the work that we have done, and getting feedback from you is very, very important. Somehow this has been one of the most active online seminar that I have ever been in or moderated. So I still have lots of questions. Maybe I can read a few, and then you can choose to answer some of them. So one, probably to Khairil and Pushpan, can we use the data from the State Gazette to help collect additional data? Are there any challenges about this in Malaysia?
Hang on. State, of course, any information that is available from the State Senate can be accessible. Hansard also from the Parliament can be accessible as well. So we can go those data. But I also wanted to quickly answer Oliver's question about the Right to Information Act. We prefer to call it the Right to Information Act to basically have a narrative that is actually a right of every citizen to have information. Now, Malaysia, we are particularly involved in Malaysia in terms of drafting the act, and we have in the pipeline to have a national Right to Information Act, which hopefully will come to fruition maybe middle of next year or end of next year. We still have the issue of federal and state harmonization of the law, because there are two subnational states in Malaysia, which is Selangor and also Penang, who already have their own FOI laws. So we are in the midst of trying to address that issue, and coming up with a bill that will actually have quite extensive, broad kind of approach to actually allowing for public to access information. So we are in that space. As in far for the state level, they have been access to try to get information from those subnational states. But even when you have RTI laws in particular states, the accessibility, the procedural requirement, and the fees they use are also considered a burden. So we're trying to address that in the national legislation as well. So hopefully if it goes through, then we have a platform to actually extract information, which then can be made public in all those platforms.
And does the ATI law also include proactive provision of information?
Yes,
too?
that is what C4 and CSOs we are pushing for, that they have to have a proactive display of information, because that actually helps the government servants from less bureaucratic work. So our narrative is to put that in the act so that it becomes a habit, where now our machinery, our bureaucracy are always thinking in terms of secrecy. We need to change that mindset. So it's in the discussion, but the final act is not clear yet whether it's going to be included or not.
The Sunlight Foundation amplified open data very much in the US by having a Freedom of Information Act to publish at least the metadata, so that there is a clue what data exists in the governments, and then you can try the request to free up the data then.
Yes,
so
that is
the topic of metadata is very important, I think so.
correct. We have an agency that actually has those data. It's called the Department of Statistics, but that data is not complete. So what you say is correct. So once the act is in place, CSOs and activists, also academics, will start bombarding it with information to make it public. So that's one of the strategies you're looking for as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. And because we are running out of time, I'm just still having fun. But before we close this session, may I ask maybe Khairil, Witee, and Nattapat to perhaps very shortly talk about the next step of what we can do, and what is your hope to achieve out of this just a guideline, what we can do next. Maybe we can start off with the same order.
So it will be me, right?
Yes.
It's our work, like, to apply the guideline and try to put our data that we both, hand and also WeVis has on our hand. We have the data from the asset declaration of NDCC, which contain the family members as well and the children as well. I mean the family members as well. So, and also we have the list of the company registers. So maybe if we plug them together, we could complete the sets of Thailand. And we see that if from Malaysia side, if they can complete their data as well on their side, so we will make like implementing the guideline to what our goals that we aim for. So I think this should be the next step that we imply our guideline.
Okay, so to apply guidelines, thank you very much. Witee, do you have anything to conclude, and what's the next step?
Yeah, I mean, Nattapat already like sum up greatly because we are working on the same team. And yeah, I feel like that's what we're trying to do. From the example, you can see that we only use the small set of the politician data. It's quite proof of concept, but because the data is so small, we still need to prove more, like if we add more data for several data set, if these standards still work, or do we need to adjust something to fit the bigger size of the data? So I think that's what the aim of our team. We are going on the right direction. We just need to be like more measure and working more data, I would say.
Thank you. Khairil?
Yeah, on my side, I love the initial work already. For me, I like to see if we can standardize a little bit on some of the classifications, especially as we start moving into companies. So Sinar already has experience in doing the connections for the company's beneficial ownership and so on. But again, like this collaboration and feedback back and forth always makes it a bit better. So I'd like to see some of those classifications for what we have for PEPs improved a little bit, at least on the technical side. I'd love to see one other country join in as well, because it's now in a spreadsheet format. So it'll be great if, for example, we have somebody like from Cambodia or Timor-Leste also have a spreadsheet to work with us as well. Then and one final, so for me, those would be next steps, and then where we work together based on these sheets, like Witee was saying, test it out a bit more, find the issues, solve the issues, and then when we solve them, we'll be solving it for all of us. So that's my hope for the next steps. The other one, last point before I wanted to share was, it was raised by AMLO in Thailand about the definition of state governments. This is a big issue right now in Malaysia. So our National Audit Department is supposed to be coming out with guidelines and clear definitions on what a state government is, state-owned or controlled corporation is in Malaysia. So we hope to see that. I'm not sure what their timeline is, but I think that's another thing that could possibly be between intergovernment collaborations around the definitions on what a state corporation is. Because so it's a possible thing that Thailand and Malaysia can work on or share experience on. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you very much, Khairil. I like that. We are solving this not just for ourselves, but just for everyone, right? I'll skip Pushpan for now because I'm asking you to close the seminar. So to Gitidate, any final thoughts on this? How can we? What do you expect as an outcome at the end of this? What do you like to see?
It's a very great question because I think I would like to see that we have a good data set for cross-check on the conflict of interest of the political exposure persons in Thailand, and for intention of the preventing the corruption when they enter into the prominence public functions in many areas of Thailand. So, and across the ASEAN region, I think it's very helpful because some of them, they might have had a transaction together, and as we're doing together now, I think we're trying to raise a standard and by create this initiative to the first stepping stone to develop the I think it will be a great benefit for all ASEAN people in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kitidet. Yeah, thank you for all your valuable feedbacks on the studies, and thank you everyone for participating in today's event. And it's, as I mentioned, it's one of the most active online seminar I have ever moderated. I'm really having fun here today. As we move into our final session, it's my honor to invite Mr. Pushpan Murugiah to deliver our closing remarks. And the reason that I'm asking Pushpan is because we don't just end this here. We are moving from this open data into public procurement, and the next project that we'll be working on will be led by C4 and led by Pushpan, and we'll be probably, hopefully, be meeting in person sometimes very soon. But for this, how is this going to be linked with public procurement? Maybe you can end it something like that and invite everyone to join us, continue to join us as well. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Nick, and thank you for KRAC and also University for inviting us and also sharing here. And thank you for all the participants. Excellent job, great presentation. And also, you're right, Nick, participants this time was quite active. A lot of people are getting involved. And we want to have AMLO coming and giving, I think that is brilliant, excellent. We don't really see a lot of government departments trying to help extend their expertise as well. So that's really grateful for that whole session. And I think in a quick summary, I feel that we know that we're on the right path. We feel that if things are happening is good. We have good people working on it. There are concerns, especially things like funding, sustainability, and even in terms of trying to identify certain issues. For example, state-owned enterprises. It's a very tricky area. Malaysia has a massive problem how to define them, and a lot of scandals are happening because of these companies. So even that is still an ongoing work in progress kind of thing. So we have challenges, we have good initiative, and this coalition is where everybody should come on board. New, far, near, join us, try to actually share your expertise and try to help us develop a much comprehensive and relatable database that everybody else can use in ASEAN. Now, I think that's important for us to move forward from just national-centric to ASEAN-related community-based solutions to anti-corruption. And I think we are already on that position now, and we should continue with this. Now, from that, coming back to our next session, which Nick has mentioned about the public procurement, I just want to quickly share that we're going to have one either hopefully next month or early next year, where we finalize the details of having a public procurement discussion on how it affects ASEAN countries differently. Now, let me give you a very quick example. We always talk about Public Procurement Act, but then again, there are so many modalities of public procurement activities. You can do private partnerships with government, G2G, private finances initiatives. So there are many modalities that some government may use to avoid following the Public Procurement Act or what kind of act they have. So we wanted to share the different modalities, different kinds of ways the government conduct their procurement, and let each nation identify which is the place that has been abused and create advocacy work or strategies to have an act that encompass a larger area of public procurement. So this database that we have now is also related to having access to who are actually doing contracts, which individuals having contracts in Malaysia, in Cambodia, in Myanmar. So this also fall into the larger discussion of having transparent public procurement information of the actors behind those activities. So I look forward to that session, and I look forward to everybody who's here. Please join us again to have, again, hopefully it's the same kind of conversation, and hopefully it's going to be face-to-face. We can meet everybody, have even much more conversation and discussion on this whole topic, and see how we can further extend, strengthen this coalition together with KRAC to make it something that is unique in our region and represents ASEAN community in fighting corruption. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Pushpan. I don't know how we do it, but we start at 1 and we finish at 3 exactly according to the schedule. I'm very happy about today. So thank you again very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the panelists. Thank you, all the audience. And thank you, the team behind all these I'll see you again very soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Everyone.